Hi guys, welcome to the developer meeting. Uh, I really struggle with this, not sure the developer meeting or the developers meeting, but I go with the S. Um, First of all, thank you for all turning up. It's such an awkward time zone. It thing feels like for half people it's kind of late, for half people it's kind of early. So thanks for everyone for attending. Uh, the agenda for today is mostly that there isn't really that big of an agenda, as in no one this week, no one this month is giving any big presentations that are going to take a lot of time, though we have had some devs request certain topics be like brought up, and the following slides will go over and give them a chance to speak and invoke discussion. I don't anticipate these discussions taking a huge amount of time. I don't know. They could, but I don't anticipate that. Therefore, I suspect of ample time at the end if anyone has any questions or wants to use this time to bring up any topics. So just if you've got anything you wanted to bring up, this is a good session and there'll be time at the end. As I was just discussing with Jason, this has been a very busy week and month, I think. I mean, at least we're getting quite a bit of churn and quite a bit of activity. And we closed fifth. I don't know entirely how to read this. Is that the 15 opened and or is that anyway, that's the stats there. I'm not sure, is that 55 merged and 15 still open that were opened in the last month. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of work. If you want to help reviewing, you're going to be like more than welcome. But on that topic, I think it's good we're getting all these commits now because I wanted to I wouldn't say this is an announcement. This has always been kind of public, but more of a ping. We're wanting to release gem5 gem5 24.1 definitely within the next couple of months. We had originally planned to release this on December 4th, but due to Jason doing another gem5 bootcamp in late November, we decided that it might be good to move this up to we kind of picked November 22nd as a pretty decent date for this. I think we'll probably stick to this newer timescale because I don't see any reason why not, and it helps Jason. But that gives us roughly 1.5 months of development time left. So I guess the message I really want to get across is like this is probably definitely the last gem5 developers meeting where you'd have a chance to bring up anything, or I'd have a chance to ping you about anything you want in, and we definitely have the time to do it. So if you've not got any PRs in that you want for the release, the next few weeks are probably when you have to get them in to be sure to get them in for the release. And if you need help with anything, especially, please reach out. We are always quite busy, but we really like to help the community get stuff in if they're willing to put in the work to produce the code. Um, that's really all I had in that, just like general FYI, this is when it's happening, and yeah, please use this last bit of time well. Going for that, I'll start with the first discussion. Is Giacomo in the room? Oh, yeah, he is. Because he had to get two things he wanted to discuss, but one of them was these new prefetchers. Um, Giacomo, do you have uh,
Yeah,
stuff
so yeah, thanks, Bobby. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I feel like provided that the original contributor are actually willing to work together with maintainers, I think it would be nice if this pull request would actually be able to go into the next 24.1 release. I think definitely adding new prefetchers. I believe that's the case for IPCP prefetcher, I believe, and SMS as well. There are additions, but some others like the IMP, the indirect memory prefetcher, it's basically like a fix of an existing version. So yeah, it seems like important pull requests, and I think it's where we should spend some time, at least on the reviewing side from.
So we at UC Davis discussed these, and our question was more we don't really understand why they're pushing these, and they all seem to be somewhat related to one another. And second of all, they have this last we've struggled. Well, definitely in the last week, they seem to stop responding to us on the PRs. Maybe I've not checked this morning. Maybe they said something. We did actually invite them to this meeting, but they haven't. Well, they didn't get back to us. Um,
That's not
uh,
quite true. They said they couldn't come to the meeting.
oh, I don't know. Sorry, my apologies. I didn't catch that point. Catch that part. Um, Jason, you said you just I haven't really looked at the code in detail here, but you said you definitely want more context and how these sort of
Well, I think I mean, I would say, and Giacomo, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here. If the authors aren't here, I'm not sure it's worth discussing.
okay. Um,
Right. So that I agree. But that was not the only point. So my point is not just about getting this PR in, is also flagging the issue that it seems from this incoming PR that the status of our prefetching code is actually not as good as we thought it is. And this is something that we are sort of informally known also internally at ARM. So not related to these prefetchers, but in general, I think it would be nice if we could spend some time on basically doing what people from Samsung, the author, actually did, which is basically coming up with some micro benchmarks to basically test individual prefetchers and basically add them to our regression list. And I think that would be extremely beneficial to sanity check and to make sure that we're getting the right performance with the prefetcher. I actually think that it's something that it's easy to parallelize, like especially if you, Jason, or other professor want to basically give like a computer architecture assignment to someone. I think giving different group of people a different prefetcher, coming up with a macro benchmark, which is stressing an access pattern, and then basically coding up or maybe fixing an existing prefetcher would be something useful for us and also interesting from a student perspective. I mean, this is just a suggestion, I would say. But this is definitely something that we consider quite relevant. And I can tell you that several people within ARM have basically considered a different modeling alternative with gem5 because they basically say like we tested it out and it seems like prefetchers are not behaving as they should. Might be right or might be wrong, but that's basically the feedback I got. So it seems to me it's an important piece of simulation or the simulation toolkit.
Yep, that makes sense. I've noted it down. So I also agree it would be great to get these in. And I think what I was hoping the authors would be able to do is tell us what the status is and what they need to get them in. But yeah, I don't think it makes sense to have that discussion.
okay. Does anyone have anything else to talk about the prefetchers? Oh,
How about this? Giacomo, do you want to take, or would you be willing to take the action item or responsibility to reach out to the authors and like be the shepherd to like shepherd these things in?
So I think I'm already reviewing the SMS prefetcher, and Daniel is. I don't know if Daniel is here online. No, actually don't see him. I'm already taking care of the SMS prefetcher. I guess like I don't have the bandwidth to basically handle all of them, but I can pick one or two, and then someone else can actually help me with the others.
Well, I guess I worry a little bit that looking at just one at a time doesn't make sense, but we need someone to be seeing a little bit bigger picture and make sure that everything is fitting together.
I think one of the problem, at least when it comes to the SMS, for example, what I'm reviewing, which the SMS prefetcher, is actually like the comment I actually left to the author is actually the author implements a good version of SMS prefetcher. It's just not reusing existing prefetcher data structures. So it's basically doing like ad hoc replacement policy, like
Yeah,
ad hoc alle review and whatever. So if anything, I think they can be reviewed separately because they're not reusing any code as far as I understood. To be fair, like I'm gonna push back a bit on that. I think like you can actually parallelize and people can look at different prefetchers, provided that they know more or less which are the basic data structure used by Gen5 prefetchers.
If I can chime in.
Ah, yeah, Daniel, you're okay. I didn't see you.
The a few points that came up during my initial review, they were left for. So we had this issue with the best offset prefetcher, which was not reusing anything, as Giacomo pointed out. And there were some suggestions related to encapsulation and software engineering, which were not followed through. So in the end, I just dropped reviewing. So it felt like it was not moving forward. So that's something that we need to discuss with them if it's indeed going forward and they are going to tackle the software engineering issues, or if they want to merge as is. In which case, I would be opposing, given that we had a lot of work to make things reusable, and then we add more stuff that needs cleaning up in the future.
I think those points make sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but then like if it is verifiable that with a micro benchmark, basically an existing version of a prefetcher is actually broken and does not do anything, then I'm actually wonder whether if they're not willing to work further, whether we can actually ask to take over the pull request or to merge it as it is. I mean, it's a hard choice. And I know that from a software engineering point of view, and that's I agree with you from a software engineering perspective. It's just that concern about researcher using a prefetcher that does not actually work.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It makes sense. It's better to have something good than something that worked and something good.
I mean, sorry, Daniel. My feeling is that if it is a new prefetcher, something that we don't have, then we can say no, we don't have the bandwidth to take over this, and we want to change. But if it is a fix for an existing one, then I think we should be willing to compromise a bit.
I think that this is a really interesting conversation, and it's something that comes up a lot in our development. I think that's an important point, right? We need to make sure that we are improving things, especially things that we know to be bad. But we also, I really hear what Daniel's saying, and that, especially Daniel put a lot of effort into these more generic implementations of caches and stuff, and to have that not used, and at some point someone's gonna have to go back and fix this code, is not ideal either. So I think, yeah, we just it would be good to, I'm glad we're having this conversation. And it sounds like, so Giacomo, what would your proposal be specifically with related, like as it relates to these 4 PRs?
Try to have a chat with the author first and trying to understand, and then like yeah, try to ping them especially on the existing fixes, and then like new prefetchers can be stalled if they're not willing to iterate over the suggestions from the reviewer. Of course, I mean, if they're willing to do so, then all the better. But
Okay, I think that's a great proposal. Can you say that you will be the one to shepherd this through? So someone I think in this call is gonna have to do some shepherding. The silence makes it seem like you don't want to be the one to do it, Giacomo.
It's just there's always this thing with shepherding is if they do kind of basically start to abandon the PR, it's often just a shepherd that ends up doing the development work for on their behalf. And I wouldn't want Daniel to be responsible for that. You know, it depends how cooperative they are. I think.
I mean, it also depends on what you mean by shepherding, right? Because it's a bit ambiguous. Like I know what you mean, right? But then like it's difficult to quantify the amount of work required for shepherding, whether it's just about having a discussion and pinging and sending reminders, these kind of things, then that's feasible. When it's about like taking over someone else's pull request and reworking it from scratch, well, not from scratch, but basically doing doing the job for the instead of the contributor, then that's a different amount of work.
So I think what I mean is it would be up to the shepherd to choose which one of those paths they want to do, right? And so if you say you only have the bandwidth to do to ping them and work with them a little bit and help them get it over the hump, that's fine. I think what I really mean is like by taking on that role, then the rest of the maintainers just won't be thinking about trying to get these in. So like if we want to get these in for 24.1, it would be on you and the authors to make that happen. And if it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen. Does that make sense? Like the question is like, who is a point person that we can go to say, what's the current status?
I also think the most one of the more important things in our project is you keep keep it going and you keep replying and you give these prompt responses. I think the biggest reason things go dead in Gen 5 is someone doesn't get a response for like a week and then they've kind of just lost interest in doing anything about it. So I think the shepherd has to keep the kind of iteration going and keep the motivation going. So really it's just about corresponding less rather than actually doing code or necessarily always providing technical advice.
You want to try it, Giacomo? I mean, the worst case scenario is it's the same status that it's in right now.
I mean, for the record, we really don't have an official note down of who's shepherding things. This is just a casual ask that you kind of take the role, but you know, it's not an official thing.
Yeah, I can try to push this forward, but I really have limited bandwidth during this period, so it's best effort.
That's the way it is for all of us. Okay, any other thoughts on the prefetchers?
The next one is, I feel it might be kind of similar, similar topic. So there's this discussion I hadn't actually been aware of until I saw Giacomo's comment that, well, title is State-of-the-Art Branch Predictors perform significantly worse than they should. Giacomo, do you have anything to say on that?
I think it's yeah, I will basically just reiterate what I was saying before, which is I think this is an important part of Gem 5, and if there are some resources that can be allocated, I think they should be into yeah, fixing branch predictors and fixing prefetchers as well. And probably also this is the most crucial one because it's really affecting a state-of-the-art predictor, which is Stash SCL. So that is, yeah, I think this is basically the same as a previous discussion. I think we should be focusing. I think the discussion was saying like if you're not planning to basically fix it, at least to advertise that it's sort of semi-broken. Or like, well, I wouldn't say it's not completely broken, but is not behaving exactly as it should from a performance point of view.
Okay. Does anyone else have any input on that?
Yeah, just real fast, I'd say that this is a meta point here. And I think it's good for people in the call to be thinking about this. So you know, I think that there's not much you don't get much credit for working on things like this. This is not incentivized in any way in the gem5 community or in the broader academic and professional community. Fixing issues like this and the prefetchers too, as the people from, I think, maybe Rochester, are doing, is it's a huge amount of work. I mean, to then do that to the quality, the software engineering quality that we expect in gem5 is another huge amount of work. And so I think we, as a community, as the gem5 community, need to find a way to incentivize and reward people for doing this kind of incredibly impactful and important work. But right now, no one has a reason to do it. So we should be thinking about that.
Okay. No one's got anything else to say. I'll move on to one. Jason, this is the one that this is the one that we're working on, or at least you're working on. So we wanted to, especially the ARM people in the room.
And I just
yeah, you can just jump in and do the whole thing if you want.
yeah. So hopefully this is a quick question for the ARM people. Do y'all have any idea how to get the VM Linux file that's usable with our bootloaders out of Ubuntu?
Richard, do you have any experience on that? I usually don't extract it from Ubuntu. I just like in the past, I basically compiled the kernel myself, and you get the VM Linux, but I never extracted it from Ubuntu.
That's fine until we care about modules and having the modules installed on the disk. So that's what we're running into now, is we need a compatible kernel modules on the disk.
I honestly I've never done that. So I don't know from the top of my head, but I can look it up and see.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is not helpful on this.
Right.
We've spent a lot of time on the internet. So there's a script to extract it from the, so the kernels are distributed in zipped form. And there's a script to extract it for x86, and it works no problem. You just run the script and you get it for x86. For ARM, I guess the bootloader needs the kernel in a different kind of format. The elf magic isn't in the right place. The offset doesn't show up right. All sorts of different problems. And no one seems to have a solution. So I don't know if anybody understands the different ARM bootloaders enough or understands what they expect from the kernel binary. Or maybe there's a way to use the zipped version of the kernel.
Yeah, I don't know if this is different on ARM or not, but on x86, I ran into a problem, which is essentially just like the error message was not the best. But the compressed format it was using, I didn't have the library installed for that, and I simply had to install that. So I don't know if it's the problem is you can't unzip it, or if the problem is the format that when it's unzipped is not readable by gem5. Is it the latter case, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think it's that when you unzip it, the format is not readable by the bootloader or understandable by the bootloader.
Okay, so that's a different issue then.
Sorry, what do you mean by that? Like, are you actually able to extract an ELF file, and then but then like when you execute, you have like a problem when you're basically jumping from the bootloader into the kernel. Is this what is going on?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, can you fill in anything?
I actually wanted to ask a different question. So, what I'm getting is that you are using the Ubuntu provided kernel because you want to compile a module. So for x86, something I've done before is to compile a module without using the extracted kernel. And that worked for me. So my question is that like, is
So
that necessary to do this?
Well, that is an alternative approach, but I don't think it's very sustainable.
Yeah, can you explain the sustainable term a little bit?
Yeah, so by using the stuff that's in Ubuntu, we can simply run, apt install kernel headers and then make install on the module. Whereas if we are doing it outside of Ubuntu's kernel, then for every kernel that we support, we have to also build modules, and then we have to copy those modules onto the disk in the right place. And then with different kernels that are built outside, we'll be loading different modules, like a different set of modules, because they may or may not be on the disk image. So it's just going to be a lot easier with Packer and with all of our other automated tools to use the kernel from Ubuntu.
Okay, that's it.
Can I ask what is the error you're getting when you're basically jumping from the bootloader into the kernel? Are you raising an exception? What's the debugging output?
So someone else needs to answer that question. I can try to look it up, but so I'll tell you what, we'll post an issue, Giacomo, and tag you in it.
Yeah, sure.
Giacomo, I actually have a question. So is that the bootloader is compiled from source/systems/R?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where you can compile it, though automatically, basically, the bootloader gets retrieved. You're not forced to compile it. You can recompile it if you want. Automatically, gem5 would look into M5 path environment variables, and it would look into M5 path binaries, and then look for boot 64 dot whatever bootloader it is, and automatically use that. So you probably have it stored somewhere in M5 path. You have a bootloader.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
Of course.
Yes, so I guess Jason will post an issue about that and try to give more information on the error and hopefully get some good information. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to say on this?
Or any other helpful ideas?
Yeah, I think, well, keep us in mind when you're playing around with ARM Linux kernels and such. So the last slide is actually just pretty much anything else slide. That's all the stuff that people told me to bring up in this meeting. It's basically open mic. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up or any questions about Gem5 development?
I had a quick question on the Slack space.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can't, I think because of some limitation, we can't scroll back and see the history of the chat.
Yeah, but it's very limited because I think we're on the free version and it only gives us 90 days, I want to say, maybe even less.
Yeah. Is there any plan to either
No, we're never paying for that thing. So unless someone wants to give us it for free, that we're where the free services. Yeah.
We'd have to pay $20 per user, maybe a little bit less, and we have, let me check right now, about 1,000 users. So we're talking about like $10,000 to $20,000 a month. We can't afford that.
Yeah. Also, I don't know. I'm very frustrated about how distributed our community channels are. I never know which one is the right one to use. But you know, and you know, I have issues with Slack. I think is one of the poorer choices. But yeah, we're definitely not going to pay for it. So I'm afraid if you'll just have to keep your own logs of things that happen in there. If you want help, Q&A, use either the mailing list or GitHub discussions, and that at least is. I wouldn't say GitHub discussions is very well indexed in Google, but it doesn't get deleted. So, yeah.
Okay, and is there any plan to either open an IRC channel, which is free? But yeah, again,
I don't. Okay, anyone is free to open up an IRC channel, and I would at least give my thumbs up to anyone responsible. But I am already feel overstretched by the amount of channels we have, so I'm not keen to open up another one. That's basically my comment on
I
that.
kind of regret that we did Slack and not Discord, but who knows? In a year, Discord might start charging per user.
Well, the argument there was apparently Slack's available in China and Discord isn't. That was their only real reason. That might not be the case anymore. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, but as Bobby said, if someone else wants to open up another channel, feel free to do so.
Yeah, even the current channels we have are run by the community. We are kind of relatively hands-off. So it's really up to you guys. Are you just struggling to find help for things, or like you seem very keen on this topic somehow?
Yeah, so I just wanted to see, I mean, most of the questions were either asked or answered previously. So I wanted to see if anyone else was facing the issues I was facing. But yeah.
Are you aware of the like mailing list archive websites? There's a couple of websites that do it. They like archive the entire mailing lists, and it's quite easy to search things there. They go back.
Yeah.
I don't even. Yeah, that's probably your best bet for things like that.
Yeah, I think the reason I ask is there was a discussion which I participated in like back in Feb or March, but I'm not able to access that particular discussion again. Yeah.
Okay, I feel your frustration. No, okay. So anyone's got anything to discuss on that or anything different they wants to discuss?
Matt, do you want to talk at all about the GPU standard library stuff?
I could. I'm not sure how much there is to say. It's just adding a GPU to the standard library. I'm hoping this will make it easier to do things like multiple GPUs. And we're probably going to use it for our tests internally. But other than that, is there anything particular you want to know about it?
No, I just thought it might be worth broadcasting to the community.
Yeah, but still work in progress, I guess you wanted to discuss how the workloads would work. So I'm pretty much fine either way. I think it makes sense to do something like a workload rather than the mix-in suggestion. So talking about what we've discussed on the pull request.
Yeah, yeah. I need to think about it a little bit more. I haven't had time to dig in deeply. I guess one of the questions is like, do you need more parameters than what set kernel disk workload has?
Yes, I think so.
If that's the case, then we need a new mixin.
Yeah, so what we're doing right now is it needs to load the driver, and we just put that in the read file script. So it basically takes like your script and then adds some other lines like in front of it to load the driver.
Would it make sense to just do that on the disk in the init script?
I don't know if you could do that easily. So it's a different parameters to load the driver depending on the device.
Oh,
So you'd have to figure out. You could figure it out maybe from PCI, but
but you could also, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's a good reason. There are other ways we could do it, but that's a good reason to have that in the command. But if it's just the read file, you don't need a new interface other than set kernel disk workload.
Yeah, but I think it's like ideally you don't really want to set that through the read file. The read file has you're kind of robbing anyone using that for anything else. Am I crashed?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like we use that quite a
So
lot to
what-
do things in our work. And if you have to sacrifice that to get in the driver, then that's not the best solution, but it means not terrible either.
I
mean,
the question is what's the right interface? Like what parameters do you want to call when you call set workload?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm asking Matt.
Okay.
But if the parameters are different than set kernel disk workload, then we need a new mix-in, which is set GPU workload.
I mean, it sounds like he just needs a very similar function, but with a driver argument. That seems pretty reasonable. But yeah, but it would be a different function, or maybe just have kind of almost a wrapper function that calls set kernel disk workload, but also handles the driver setup.
Yeah. It might be worth, Matt, to look at the way here. I'll drop a link. Look at the way the workload resources work. To kind of see why this matters. Is this the right? Or Harshal, are you in the call? Yeah. Can you send a link to a workload for full system, like GAPS BFS? And then like in the JSON for the workload, it basically says what function it should call on the board, and then what the values for the parameters of that function is. And so if we need to define a new function, that's fine. But we need to be able to have a JSON file that defines the function and all the parameters so we can load that workload.
Actually, I actually think having a separate function makes actually the most sense, because inevitably the GPU workloads can only be added to a GPU board, and therefore, theoretically, if you were just going to use the kernel disk workload, then theoretically the GPU workloads could be, the interface is the same, so you should be able to add them to the x86 board, for example, but they won't work because there's no GPU there. So I think it makes perfect sense to me to make a separate function. Anyway.
Yeah. So the separate function, I kind of already know how to do. This workload stuff, like I don't know what to do with this JSON file. I have no idea what to do with it. And if the workload doesn't already exist somewhere, I have no way of testing it.
I'll be honest, I don't really know why the resources part of this discussion has been raised up, because I don't think that's really too much of your concern.
Well, the concern is that we want to be able to provide workloads for people.
But I don't think Matt needs to do anything for us to be able to do that. Like, I don't know what he needs to provide us. I think we can do it either way.
I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
So the point here is that we need to make sure that the GPU board can have some function that then we define what resources use for the function. So in this case, set kernel disk workload, the way this works is it's going to take the kernel, which is the x86 4.19, the disk image, which is x86 GAPS, and then it's going to set the read file contents to be run TC. And so this function, set kernel disk workload, gets called on the board with kernel disk image and additional parameters, or sorry, kernel disk image and read file contents as the parameters. So in order to make workloads for the board, which Matt doesn't need to do right now, but we will want to do very soon, we need to make sure that the interface exists such that we can do that through this JSON file. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
The restrictions of what this JSON file can do are not very big. Like, as in, like, you could, like, as long as he is calling, as long as his workload is settable through a single function call, which it would be very easy to do, even if he, you know, very easy for us to work around, even if he didn't do it that way. It's fine. There's only, I think the only other restriction here is you can't pass objects that aren't resources. You can pass
But-
primitive.
And it needs a function, right? If you don't have a function.
Yeah, but of course he's going to put in a function. How would you set something in the board without a function? Just,
Well, if you look at the code now, it doesn't have a set workload function.
well, okay, even if there isn't one, I feel like we could easily figure out one. I don't know. I just don't think this is something he should concern about. I'm also concerned with everything else that might be, like, the workload stuff I think we can do. Maybe being very optimistic about how flexible our framework is, but I think we can adapt to almost anything quite quickly.
Okay. I think we've gotten too in the weeds here, but Matt, if you have more questions about this, let me know.
Okay.
The other thing, do you want to say anything else about the Viper board, Matt?
Yeah, so
Or
this
the
is sort of
Ruby?
related, so I'll bring it up. Going to a newer version of Ubuntu and Rockham is going to require fixing issue 1504. So I'm hoping to get that by the next release. But essentially that's this issue with there's this mysterious PCI device. And in gem5, when you read from the PCI config from an unknown device, it just returns some bogus data. But when you write to it, it panics. So I don't know. I posted some workaround, which seems reasonable given the way that the read config works. But something, either that workaround needs to go in, or somebody's going to have to figure out what this mysterious device is and how to implement it. But I'd like to update to Ubuntu 24 as well for the GPU side.
I mean, I'm not against your workaround of just warning instead of panicking. It is kind of weird that we're writing to a non-existent PCI device, though. On a potentially related note, the ACPI stuff is all sorts of broken during boot.
Yeah, so that's one of the issues. The new Rockham version for some reason requires WMI support, which requires something else like DST or whatever, and which requires something else in ACPI, which requires something else. So gem5 only implements like the root thing, RDST or whatever. So the ACPI support is so old that I had to implement a workaround module, which makes the driver loading thing even more complicated than it already is. So this is sort of related to the set workload stuff because that's going to have to also change. But it will just be more commands.
Yeah. Yeah, booting x86 is a mess.
Yeah, it's getting a little concerning because there's like a lot of band-aids, and of course, this isn't really like exciting stuff to work on. You can't write a paper about it, so it feels like it's going to continue to be band-aids.
It would be nice if we had a good place that listed all these issues. Because like remembering that we put band-aids on things is important. And I think that's part of the issue here is that all of the internal knowledge of where we put band-aids and what the band-aids did and how they worked has left the community for x86. And so we kind of have nothing to go on right now, especially with the PCI and ACPI stuff. So. Okay. Anything else? Anything else about the Ruby static stuff?
Oh yeah, so there's, I guess, some issue with some x86 chai. I guess that's someone's custom protocol. If someone can point me a way to reproduce that issue, I can track it down. Should be pretty simple to find. I think this perfect cache memory structure is just something that's not in any of the protocols that I tested.
Yeah, I will make sure that happens. Yeah, and then I also pushed something because multiple Ruby systems with the same protocol doesn't work with the standard library, but I pushed a fix for that.
Is that something that worked before, or is it something you're trying to set up?
No, it's a new thing now that you allowed multiple Ruby systems. So it's PR 1649. Oh yeah, you
Okay.
already commented.
Yeah, it's
yeah, I really hate that version count stuff. Yeah, I guess people might have seen I'm playing around with running some stuff in parallel on gem5 and fixing some issues little by little with that. So you'll be seeing more PRs that are related to that as well. Okay. Anything else today?
I guess not. Okay, finish now. Actually used up most of the hour, I'm quite surprised. So we'll schedule for the whatever the second Thursday is of November, assuming I'm in office, which I think I am. Yeah, probably then I suspect we'll use that time to discuss last minute things we need to get in the next Gen 5 release. As will probably be about 2 weeks away from release by that point. Yeah, otherwise, please reach out if you need any help getting stuff in at this time. Well, sooner is always better, these sorts of things. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and see you around.
Thank you. Bye.